Economics is not about money. It is about understanding human choices in a world of limited resources. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Simplify for Me Maths and Economics. I'm delighted to have you here as we begin our journey into Class 12 Introductory Microeconomics. Economics is much more than study of money, prices, or market. It is the study of human behavior and decision making. Every day, we make choices: what to buy, how to spend our time, what to study, and even what career to pursue. These choices arise because our wants are unlimited, but our resources are limited. In this chapter, we'll discover why scarcity exists, how people make decisions, and how these individual decisions shape the entire economy. So, let's begin our fascinating journey into the world of economics. Before we study markets, demand, production, and national income, we must first understand the foundation of economics. Economics begins with a simple fact of life: resources are limited, but human wants are unlimited. Imagine that you have only 24 hours in a day. You may want to study, play sports, watch movies, and spend time with family. Since time is limited, you cannot do everything. You must choose. Similarly, individuals, businesses, and governments all face limitations, and therefore they have to make choices. Economics studies how these choices are made and how scarce resources are allocated to satisfy human wants in the best possible manner. This chapter will introduce three fundamental ideas. First is scarcity, second is choice, and third, the economic systems through which societies organize production and distribution. These concepts form the basic and the backbone of all economic analysis. To understand economics, we first need to understand three basic building blocks. They are goods, services, and the resources. Goods are physical items that satisfy human wants. Examples include food, clothes, books, mobile phones, and houses. They can be, in fact, seen and touched. Services, on the other hand, are intangible activities performed for others. A teacher teaching in a classroom, a doctor treating patients, or a bank providing financial assistance are all examples of services. Finally, we have resources. Resources are the inputs used to produce goods as well as services. These include land, labor, machinery, technology, and entrepreneurship. Think of resources as ingredients, goods and services as the final products, and the economy as the process that transforms these resources into things that satisfy human needs. Every economic activity revolves around these three components. Resources are used to produce goods and services, which are consumed by individuals to satisfy their wants. Understanding these building blocks is the first step towards understanding how an economy functions. Learned that goods and services satisfy our wants and that resources are used to produce them. But there's one fundamental problem. Our wants are endless while our resources are limited. This brings us to the central problem of economics, which is scarcity. Since no society has unlimited resources, it cannot produce everything that everyone wants. Therefore, every economy must answer three basic questions. The first is, what should be produced and in what quantities? Should more resources be used to produce food, clothing, education, healthcare, or luxury goods? Since resources are limited, producing one of this in the more quantity usually means producing less of the other. The second question is, how should these goods be produced? Should the production use more labor or machines? Should factories adopt technology or traditional methods? The choice of production methods affects efficiency, employment, and cost. And the third question is, for whom should these goods be produced? How should the goods and services produced in an economy be distributed among people? Should everyone receive the same amount? Or should distribution depend on income and purchasing power? These three questions form the central problems of every economy. Different economic systems answer these questions differently, but no economy can avoid them. Why? Because the scarcity exists everywhere. Understanding these questions helps us understand why economic decisions are so important and why societies must continuously make choices about the use of their resources. To understand the consequences of scarcity and choice, economists use a simple model which is called production possibility set. Imagine an economy that produces only two goods, corn and cotton. The economy has fixed amount of resources and technology. Therefore, it cannot produce unlimited quantities of both the goods simultaneously. The table before this shows different possible combinations of corn and cotton production. At point A, all the resources are devoted in producing cotton and no corn is being produced. As we move from A to B, B to C, and then to D and to E, the economy produces more corn, that is, the corn production is increasing, but has to sacrifice some cotton. Finally, at point E, all resources are used to produce corn and no cotton is produced. Each combination shown in the table is thus possible because the economy's resources are fully and efficiently utilized. The production possibility set therefore represents all the different combinations of goods and services that an economy can produce with its available resources and existing technology. This model beautifully illustrates an important economic truth. To get more of one good, society usually has to give up some quantity of another good. By plotting the combinations from the production possibility set on a graph, we obtain production possibility frontier, or simply it is called PPF. The PPF represents the maximum possible combinations of two goods that can be produced when all the resources are fully and efficiently utilized. Every point on the curve, A, B, C, D, E, represents efficient production. Now, notice something important. Any point inside the curve, say at this point, indicates that some resources are unemployed or underutilized. The economy is not producing to its full potential. And any point outside the curve, for example, at this point, cannot currently be achieved because the economy does not have sufficient resources or technology. Another important idea shown by the PPF is opportunity cost. Is the opportunity cost. As the economy moves from one point to another, producing more of one good requires sacrificing some quantity of the other good. For example, moving from B to C increases the production of corn but reduces the production of cotton. This sacrifice is called opportunity cost. The PPF therefore teaches us three powerful concepts. First is scarcity, second is efficient use of resources, and third is opportunity cost. And these ideas form the foundation of microeconomics. Learned that economics faces the problems of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. But who actually makes these decisions? Different societies answer these questions differently, giving rise to different systems of economic organization. Broadly speaking, there are two major systems of economic organization. The first is centrally planned economy. In this system, the government or a central authority makes the major economic decisions. It decides what goods should be produced, how much should be produced, and how resources should be distributed among people. The objective is often to achieve social welfare and a more equitable distribution of resources. Historically, countries such as China and the former Soviet Union followed this approach for a significant period of time. The second system is market economy. In a market economy, economic decisions are made through the free interaction of millions of buyers and sellers. Consumers decide what they want to buy. Producers decide what they want to produce. And the prices decide or they act as signals that coordinate these activities. So, here, the price signal is a very important aspect. If the demand for a product increases, prices may rise, encouraging producers to supply more of that product. Countries such as United States have traditionally relied more heavily on market mechanisms, although government intervention may still exist. However, in reality, very few economies are purely centrally planned or purely market based. Most modern economies, including India, are mixed economies. They combine elements of both the systems, allowing markets to function while also permitting the government to intervene in areas such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social welfare. Therefore, the real challenge is not choosing one system over the other, but finding the right balance between the market forces and the government intervention. Economics not only tries to explain how the world works, but also asks whether outcomes we observe are desirable. This gives rise to two different ways of looking at economic problems. When economics study an issue, they often use two different lenses, and they are positive economics and normative economics. Let us begin with positive economics. Positive economics deals with facts, cause and effect relationships, and objective analysis. It tries to answer the questions such as why do prices rise? How does an increase in taxes affect demand? What happens when unemployment increases? The purpose of positive economics is to explain and predict economic behavior based on an evidence and logic. For example, the statement an increase in the price of petrol reduces its demand is a positive statement because it can be tested using data. Now let us look at normative economics. Normative economics deals with opinions, values, and judgments about what ought to happen. It asks questions such as should the government provide free education? Should taxes on rich be increased? Should income equality be reduced? For example, the statement the government should provide free healthcare to everyone is a normative statement because it reflects a value judgment. Although these two branches are different, economists often use both together. Positive economics helps us understand the consequences of economic actions, while normative economics helps us decide whether those consequences are desirable for the society. In simple words, positive economics asks what is, and normative economics asks what should be. Now that we understand the different ways economists analyze problems, Let us look at different levels at which economic activity can be studied. Economics can be studied at two different levels. How? By focusing on individual decision makers or by looking at the economy as a whole. The word microeconomics comes from the Greek word micros, meaning small. Microeconomics studies the behavior of individual economic units such as consumers, households, firms, and specific markets. It asks questions like, why does the demand for a product increase? How is the price of a commodity determined? Why does one firm earn more profit than the other? For example, studying the market for wheat, smartphones, or movie tickets is a part of microeconomics. Now consider macroeconomics. The word macro means large. Macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole. Instead of focusing on individual markets, it looks at aggregate variables like national income, inflation, unemployment, economic growth, and government policies. The type of questions it asks is, why does inflation occur? Why does unemployment increase? Why do some countries grow faster than others? Why do economies experience recession? And in simple terms, microeconomics is like using a magnifying glass to study individual parts of the economy, while macroeconomics is like using a satellite view to observe the entire economy. Both the branches are equally important and complement each other. In fact, the decisions of millions of individuals studied in microeconomics collectively determine the outcome studied in macroeconomics. So, economics begins with scarcity, but its ultimate purpose is to help society make better choices. And with that, we have come to the end of chapter 1, Introduction to Economics. So, today we learned that economics is fundamentally the study of scarcity and choice. We understood that human wants are unlimited, while the resources are limited. And this reality forces individuals and societies to make decisions. We explored three central questions that every economy must answer: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. We also learned about the production possibility frontier, which illustrates scarcity, efficiency, and opportunity cost. Further, we discussed different systems of economic organization, the distinction between positive and normative economics, and finally, difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. These concepts form the foundation of everything that we will study in economics in the coming chapters. Remember, economics is not merely about money and markets. It is about understanding choices, incentives, and the decisions that shape our lives in society. I hope this lesson has made the subject more interesting and easier to understand. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Simplify for me math and economics. This will give you access for more content on economics, mathematics, and CUET preparation. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to write to us at mathsbeyondiit at gmail.com or leave your queries in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, happy learning and keep simplifying economics.